Welcome to the module Promotion and Marketing. Today we will focus on the topic of the narrative techniques, starting from storytelling up to its ultimate evolution.
What will we learn through this submodule?
The objectives of this submodule are to acknowledge basic narrative techniques, to recognize storytelling and story-doing strategies.
Let's start with a quick refresh on the communication basic scheme by the linguist Roman Jakobson.
Each communication starts when an individual, here called sender, transmits a message to another, here called receiver. This message refers to an idea and depends on context. The message can be transmitted by means of a channel, also called medium, such as the voice or a paper, and it can be converted into a specific code, such as the oral and the written language. The fact of transmitting messages can be reduced to simple information, when the sender does not get any feedback from the receiver. In fact, the real communication process begins when the receiver gets and elaborates the message and then reacts. Knowledge and sharing are the final objective of the communication. Promotion has to be intended as the marketing communication activity. The objectives of promotion are different: to inform, to raise interest or curiosity, to make organizations, brands or products memorable, to stimulate the product's use or purchase, to make users loyal.
Consider that a correct communication flux happens when sender and receiver share the same channel, like an app, and use the same code, like the language. Remember that it is quite difficult to translate the idea into a message and that the same message is susceptible to be interpreted in the receiver's mind, according to her mental frames, perspective, psychology, sensitivity. Take into account that the people sharing the same context deal with the same cultural references. Technically, they exchange messages sharing the same referent ideas. When dealing with global communication, you need to study the cultural context and then calibrate your messages in order that they could be intelligible.
In tourism, as in all business activities, communication and promotion are strategical activities when interacting with customers or potential clients. First, they must not be confused. For instance, if you write a post on a social platform during the opening hours of your restaurant, you are not making promotion. This is only information. On the other hand, if you post on a social platform a virtual tour video of your restaurant by transmitting also the opening hours, you are making promotion because you exhibit your product and stimulate people to come and eat by showing the restaurant interiors and menus.
This drives to the principle that communication and promotion activities are based on content. Then, these activities can take different directions according to the way and the medium where they will be managed. Content is the king, but the form is the court. This means that you have to transform your main idea, after selecting them among the other, into a message, that is the content. You have to think to whom you want or need to address your message, that is the target. This preliminary analysis determines the following selection of the code, that is the language, and the channel, that is the medium, to reach your target. The selection criterion is quite elementary. They must be intelligible and shared by your target.
Let's focus on the content and the form for approaching the narrative technique. A narrative technique is a method the creator of a narrative uses to convey a message through a story. Making storytelling refers to art of narrating and means to use a language or languages to impress the listener's imagination.
Referring to the content, you need to put it into a structure, that is the narrative structure. The basic dynamic structural factors, or P factors, are characters or people, setting or place, time or process, plot, purpose. You can select, invent, change and mix up these elements by considering that time and space must be shared references with your target. Your target must be emotionally or cognitively involved. Your target should identify herself with the characters. Consider the tourism campaign Holland, the original Cool. The fact of narrating the Holland destination through the lifestyle of its inhabitants is far from the cliché of the country of tulips. Moreover, it is declined in a series of episodes engaging the public. Let us watch the pilot video Holland, the original Cool. The beginning.
Regarding promotion of Holland, consider the different structures of these videos. The topic is the same, Keukenhof, flower garden, but it is seen from two different perspectives, thus suggesting two different ways to tell the garden, a masterpiece to be admired and a place to be lived and where to have fun. Keukenhof, the world's biggest flower garden, filmed with a drone.
Referring to the narrative structure, you may adopt a genre. Some genres are fairy tale, legend, novel, comics, crime story, biography, folktale, fantasy tale, satire, travel story. You can choose among a wide range of genres. Consider the following criteria for selecting your story genre. It should fit the message. It should be coherent with your identity and philosophy. It must be familiar with your target. It should be suitable to the territorial context. Fairy atmosphere and fantasy tale are the structural factors of this promotional video, inspired by the best famous Spirited Away by Hayao Miyazaki.
Referring to the form, the expression of a content passed through rhetoric and register. Rhetoric is traditionally intended as the art of saying, of speaking, and more specifically the art of persuading with words. Rhetoric is closer to your daily life than you think. Figures of speech help to communicate effectively and emphatically. They are classified into figures related to sound, assonance, alliteration, rhyme; figures related to syntax, parallelism; figures related to logic and emphasis, euphemism, irony, hyperbole, rhetorical question, paradox; figures related to meaning, simile, metaphor, personification; verbal games, anagram. Consider the great importance of these figures while creating new names and pay off for branding. An example of metaphoric language applied to tourism promotion is the video, Discover the World's Masterpiece by Experience Al Ula.
A peculiar figure is synesthesia, that is a perceptual phenomenon in which stimulation of one sense leads to involuntary experiences in another sensorial dimension, like a color inspiring a tactile sensation, like cold or hot. The Ministry of Tourism of Argentina produced a promotional video claiming a new positioning for this country in the tourism scenario. Some places in Argentina seem to satisfy the basic need of free screaming of each individual. Argentina. 5 places for screaming.
Register, in linguistics, indicates the variety of languages used according to the individuals involved in communication and to the context. There are different types of registers: ornate or refined referring to the formal language, learned or erudite referring to the sectorial languages, bureaucratic, medium referring to current spoken language, colloquial referring to familiar language, slang or dialects. Language can refer to new, sometimes critical, language forms, mix of international terms, neologisms, and slang words. They are typical of a group of people. They can express an identity, contest the reality or make fun.
Language can refer to verbal or written languages, but also to non-verbal languages, such as images, music. By the way, opera is an internationally appreciated universal language. The region Toscana in Italy used a famous piece in an innovative promotional spot. Far from clichés, it wants to transmit the hyperreal authenticity of Tuscany lifestyle through a daydream narration. Voglio vivere così by Region Toscana, extended version. The dreamlike atmosphere also inspired another magic spot of the Venetian Resort in Nevada. I Want It Now by the Venetian Resort.
Consider that today society privileges visual communication at all levels. Images and video are the most used code to communicate. The movie industry contributes to this trend, as well as it has becoming more and more crucial to make places and people known all over the world. The effects are evident in the tourism storytelling inspired by fantasy movies. An example of this is the viral and national campaign New Zealand is conducting under the sign of the film The Lord of the Rings, 100% Middle-earth, 100% pure New Zealand.
The fact of insisting in narrative structure, genre, rhetoric, register is because the choice of these elements determines the storyteller style, thus his/her originality. Originality is a distinctive point in communication and promotional activities. Creativity and originality are good ingredients to make a successful campaign and a strength to go against mainstream in the ocean of homologate communication. Quebec has been investing in new impressive storytelling also by coping with the delicate theme of tourism accessibility. Quebec. Un voyage de vous.
How to make storytelling. First step. Organize the experiences. Select what it can be more interesting to be told at that moment in order to create tension and empathy and to stimulate creativity.
How to make storytelling. Second step. Conceive the narration as a process including the following features: narrative sequence, use chronology and cause-effect relationships, particularities, highlight details that may appear little or insignificant, but useful for the story plot. Likelihood. Make the story close to reality through few details. Win-win concept. The idea that everybody is winning relatively her need is a positive approach to plausibility. Choose the most suitable genre, according to trends but under the sign of the coherence.
How to make storytelling. Third step. Define the scenario of the action, that is the narrative framework where the story takes place, scenario of knowledge, that implies characters' mood and points of view.
How to make storytelling. Fourth step. Plan the operational phases. Fix the goals, choose the target, define timing and deadlines, estimate human and financial resources, define the work team, realize the piece from the writing to the production, evaluate the feedback from the public or the consumers through the parameters of identification and the viral effects.
How to make storytelling. One of the most applied narrative genres is the fairy tale. It is a tale of a wonderful story where children and adults live in a world of reality and magic. The fairy tale is closed to humans because it is an anthropological representation of their thoughts, feelings, features. The structure of the tale is initial ordinary situation, complication, problem solving, final happy situation. The elements are hero, lack, company, adjuvant, result. In this perspective, the hero can be identified with organization or the product and the lack with the tourist's needs.
Here are some storytelling inspirations: area, declension, corporate, chronological history, evolution, changes, identity and philosophy, brand, reputation, like certification, review, technology, innovation, sustainability, products portfolio, special products, features, reputation, like certification, review, method of production, benchmark, product naming, label, packaging, brand, territory, landscape, folk, legend, history, famous people related to, autochthon elements, food and beverage, environment, ambiance, peculiar features, design, heritage and culture, atmosphere.
Why to make storytelling. Storytelling can help to promote values and ideals, convince to buy products by leveraging the emotional or logical sector, support corporate social responsibility, keep the memory, communicate projects, manage changes. The efficiency in communication and promotion activities takes place when you succeed in reaching a large number of people in a while. This recalls the importance of applying a strict clustering or segmentation strategy. Only uniform groups of people understand and react homogeneously to a stimulus. A vibrant narrator voice behind the camera and a large use of rhetoric language, rich in assonances, alliterations, oxymora, antitheses, parallelism, metaphors creates the empathic atmosphere in the message related to tourism. Stop in Portugal. Visit Portugal. Can't skip Hope 2020.
Where to make storytelling. Traditionally, the organization was the main and only content producer for the company and the product's narration, through oral or written language, by means of both digital and analogical communication. Nowadays, the scenario is more complex thanks to the new technologies that created and are meantime creating new channels. Web media and social networks, that is an online platform connecting virtual social nets, allows users to share contents and to interact on real time. That is the reason you need to manage the transmedia storytelling and focus on the storydoing phenomenon.
What is transmedia storytelling? Transmedia storytelling is a story that is told by means of various media and communication platforms, by using engagement tools such as gamification. Thus, the transmedia narrative is based on the storytelling techniques and elements, plot, setting, characters, but it is founded on peculiar principles. Some of them are typical of gamification: seriality, continuity, full immersion, rewarding. Some of them are typical of web, social network, subjectivity and different perspective, participation, global diffusion and viral effect, contents extraction.
Why making transmedia storytelling? The output of the transmedia storytelling are new narrative models, interstitial micro-stories, transactional contents filling intervals, such as video game, parallel stories, narrative forms bound to the main plot, such as the spin-off stories, peripheral stories, narrative forms distantly related to the main plot, user-generated contents, whose acronym is UGC, narrative forms related to the main story, but susceptible to implementing it. The aim of transmedia storytelling is to generate content on different platforms in order to spread a message. It is a multi-voice and multi-channel narrative.
An interesting case of transmedia storytelling is the Wintertype experience by MySwitzerland. Wintertype created a fun and engaging experience by making stories interacting. The Instagram account used a dynamic method similar to the one you use when browsing interactive books. Instead of browsing real pages, users browsed stories through taps, jumping from one story to another following their personalized path. The story worked like a real questionnaire. The ultimate result was that the user discovered her Wintertype profile: Carver, Freerider, Snowlower or Après-skier. Along this virtual trip, the user could swipe up and discover mountain itineraries and ski opportunities recommended by the MySwitzerland.com portal.
User-generated contents lead us to talk about the storydoing frontier. Storydoing is the act of narrating a story with actions and facts. Users are the co-creators of contents related to experiences where they are fully involved. Up to their engagement, they expected to be rewarded, even only through visibility. Storydoing is thus a new narrative form made by users, and it is part of a collaborative marketing strategy through digitalization. It is the new word of mouth, also called WOM 4.0. The object of this narrative drama are true stories told in real time. Storydoing generates call-to-action effects and platforms. Storydoing is made by means of visual media, online video stories, direct, reels and pictures on social networks.
Here are some storydoing inspirations. Create stories and make testimonials, influences, users tell them live. Create a social multimedia wall, promote visual contests, use gaming and gamification, organize panel tests, experiments, search for recovery old identity experiences, search for new exclusive, unpublished activities. Other, depending on your creative mood and on the technology development.
The storydoing trend has been virtually combated in promotional marketing campaigns. Watch the episodes by 100% Pure New Zealand, which are inspired by action movies, and appreciate the social language the organization uses for introducing the video. Traveling under the social influence, our friend Tom Sainsbury, comedian and Snapchat dude, from the Social Observation Squad, SOS, has been patrolling some of New Zealand's top tourist spots. He's on a mission to stop people from taking photos under the social influence. Guess what he found?
Some of the platforms and channels you can make storytelling, transmedia storytelling and storydoing are social networks, video and image channels, blogs, social channels, but you can apply it also on the business web pages. If in storytelling, transmedia storytelling and storydoing you are working transversal dimensions, consider that in social media horizontality and communication reigns. This is true in the forums, chat groups or in the communities, which are groups of people meeting, discussing and exchanging contents over the network and intact through instant messaging programs. A community is a sort of echo chamber, a virtual salon where people say, hear and share what they want to hear or what is interesting for them. It is this closed segment who has constructed an entity through verbal, like words, and metaverbal, like images, videos, languages.
When you write a post or leave a comment to interact with the net, you need to use a social language. The features of this new informal language are conciseness, use of playful elements, like emoticons and pictograms, use of cryptic or tachygraphs elements, like bro for brother, use of dysphemisms, like he's 6 feet under for death, use of tags and hashtags, use of phono symbols, use of anglicisms and mix with local languages, use of neologisms, use of false misprints, like savansadir for kva sans dire, attribution of new meanings to old words, like profile, use of expressions from new cultural references, new use of spaces and grammatical, like apostrophes, presence of errors.
The unique and final suggestion is to make your content short, relevant, useful and possibly engaging.
Let's conclude with the relevant contribution of David J.P. Phillips from TEDx Stockholm in 2017. The Magical Science of Storytelling, David J.P. Phillips, TEDx Stockholm 2017 by TEDx Talks.
Thank you for your attention.